Hey guys, Wyatt Claypool here. I'm still out in Cambridge campaigning for the New Blue Party of Ontario. So if you live in Ontario, please vote New Blue in the provincial election. But let's get into the news of the day, which is Mark Carney being propped up in the leadership again. They already kicked out Chandra Arya from the Liberal Party leadership race, and now they've kicked out Ruby Dhalla. And yeah, people can argue, well, they were never going to win. But in leadership races, when it's a ranked ballot, they were going to affect the outcome of the race. And the people that were supporting them still can affect the outcome of the race if they then shift their support to other candidates than Mark Carney. But what the Liberal Party is obviously trying to do here is turn this into a Mark Carney coronation. I've said in the past it might not be a coronation, and that just speaks to the weakness of Mark Carney as a candidate. If Mark Carney was a true force in politics, like people listen to him once or twice and they're like, you know what, I want that guy to be prime minister, he wouldn't be having a problem. The problem for the Liberals is that while they want him to be a star candidate, they also want him to serve all of the insider interests of the party. And that's the thing that Mark Carney is good at. He's bad at being charismatic. So they really want him, but he also is extremely difficult to get to win. And even with like a field as boring as he's currently running in, he still is having a hard time winning. Even at this point, there is a chance he does not win. I'm going to remind people quickly before I jump into the Ruby Dalla situation more what his polling numbers look like inside the party. This was a poll done about a week ago or so, week and a half ago, by Main Street Research, only of Liberal Party members, not supporters, not people saying they're vaguely interested in the leadership race, people who can vote in it. It was at 38%. Freeland was at 29. We have Karina Gould at 18, and we had Ruby Dalla at 5% and Frank Bayless at 2. Now I'm wondering if Frank Bayless is now going to absorb a lot of Ruby Dalla support because there is a kind of ironic vote going on inside the Liberal Party, and it's the Liberals' fault. They made memberships free, so why not take one out? Like, I didn't do it, but I know a lot of people who did, in order to basically just vote against Mark Carney. And so now with him, he's going to maybe increase a little bit. Maybe people are going to, say, well, no point in voting anymore. And it's going to turn into a Mark Carney coronation. At the same time, this looks really bad. In 2022, Polyev had real muscle in his campaign. He was beating people you could say if Polyev wasn't in the race would have been really tough people to beat. Jean Charest is a good politician. Leslie Lewis, a pretty good politician. There was Patrick Brown in the race, but that guy's a fraudster, and he's actually going to be involved in the story. We're going to talk about Ruby Dalla, but there are people who are quite good at election campaigns or very charismatic that he was up against that he ended up beating. But now let's get to the readout of what went on here. So Mackenzie Gray at, I believe, CTV, CBC, National Reporter for Global News. Okay, I didn't get that right. Ruby Dalla is officially out of the Liberal leadership race, according to a statement from the party, which says that they had concerns about Dalla allegedly violating the Canada Elections Act, other election finance matters, and inaccurate financial reporting. I will read a little bit of the statement to you, but rest assured, it doesn't really matter that much. They are throwing spaghetti at the wall, trying to figure out some sort of a reason to get rid of her. And so their reason that they have settled on is all of the reasons. They are getting rid of her because everything. Anyways, before I read this, guys, just do remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't. But let's jump right into this. Today, the Liberal Leadership Vote Committee unanimously made the decision to disqualify Ruby Dalla from the 2025 Liberal leadership race. The decision followed an extensive process and review, including interviews, questionnaires, and an opportunity for Dr. Dalla to directly address the committees. After a thorough investigation, the Leadership Vote Committee and the Leadership Expense Committee, sitting jointly, unanimously determined that Dr. Dalla was in breach of 10 violations of the national leadership rules, leadership vote rules, and the leadership expense rules. The violations include concerns about alleged violations of the Canada Elections Act, certain other election finance matters, non-disclosures of material facts, and inaccurate financial reporting. The Leadership Vote Committee determined that the violations were extremely serious, accepted the recommendations of the Chief Electoral Officer, and disqualified Dr. Dalla under Section 8I of the National Leadership Rules. No, Do you know what happened? Because Ruby's actually already discussed what's happened. I don't need to read all of her statements on this. We will be cutting a little bit to what she said in the aftermath of this in a second. But what they did was they just found that, for example, a husband and wife both donated to her campaign using the same credit card, which is allowed by any election rules in Canada. That obviously, if you live together, you're going to sometimes use a joint credit card in order to make donations. They're not violating elections rules by having multiple. This isn't walking into some sort of community center and then writing down people's names and phone numbers and emails, but then running all of the donations through some rich guy's credit card. No, no, these are a couple who are donating to Ruby Dhalla voluntarily. And that's what they hit her on. Another thing they hit her on was that she's involved in foreign interference. They kind of pulled back on this because it's an awkward thing for the Liberal Party to accuse anyone of, especially falsely, since they've not only been involved in foreign interference, they've been obviously involved in the covering up of foreign interference. If you read the Hogue report, it was an entire report trying to hand wave away the fact that the Liberal Party and a lot of its MPs directly associate themselves with CCP front groups and other extremist organizations. And they're going to say that Ruby Dahl is working with the Indian government. My friend and other sometime co-host of the National Telegraph, Daniel Boardman, pointed out that they actually accuse her of being in league with the Indian government. At the same time, they also leaked out the idea that she might have been working with Patrick Brown to sell memberships or to, I guess, register people as members. That doesn't make sense. If you know anything about Patrick Brown, he is Mr. Muslim Brotherhood and Mr. Khalistani. He is very friendly to Khalistani and Muslim Brotherhood affiliated organizations. Very much the type of guy who would hang out with the Tamil Tigers and literally promise to take them off the terror registry if he won the 2022 federal leadership race. That's why that guy was a psycho. But you can't say that you're working with that guy and working with the Indian government. Like Boardman said, that's like saying that you're a Mossad agent who works for Hamas. That's not how that works. Anyways, let's move over into what Dahlia has said in the aftermath of this stuff. The good thing for Canadian freedom is that Ruby doesn't look like she's going to be silent about this. And I think that's exactly what Canada needs right now. Somebody to actually stand up to the corrupt establishment of a party in order to get things changed. Because Chandra Arya, because he's a sitting MP, sort of didn't want to get kicked out of the party, so he was mostly silent about being disqualified. Ruby's not a sitting MP. She can do whatever the heck she wants.
Well, I think it speaks to the state of the Liberal Party of Canada that a candidate who is running to become leader of the party, who is running to become prime minister in our country, is finding out that she has been disqualified on air from an email that the media outlet that she is interviewing with has received. So it is very alarming and very shocking. It is certainly not surprising because I think the Liberal Party of Canada was seeing exactly what our internal polls are telling us, that my campaign and my team, we were neck to neck with a front runner in the race. They did not want me to go on to that debate stage in Montreal. They certainly did not want me on that ballot. And the Liberal Party of Canada wanted to complete the coronation of Mark Carney. All of the allegations that you have mentioned have been, that you have spoken about, they are completely false. They are fabricated.
And that's the funny thing about it. As she was indicating there, she didn't know she was disqualified until that interview, but the CBC knew she was disqualified before she did. And that is an old sort of Katie Telford political operator trick. You want to just jam out all this bad information about someone to the media before even informing them so they don't have the ability to react and prepare for the news cycle. I don't think that she was probably neck and neck with Mark Carney, but I do think that maybe she had more than 5%, more like 7, 8, 9, maybe 10%, and she would have been very dangerous to Mark Carney. I already know there's a lot of people who bought Liberal memberships, or I guess, again, registered for them, who are actually going to be voting for Chrystia Freeland. And I understand their entire logic about it. Chrystia Freeland is terrible. She froze people's bank accounts. She's the awful finance minister, although in a certain sense you could argue she's not that bad of finance minister. Mark Carney forced her to do a lot of the dumbest things that she did as finance minister. So, fair ball, I guess, although she should probably just quit her job if you're not really in control of as finance minister and you're being told to do stupid things, which she technically did at the end. But people want her to be the prime minister because at least Chrystia Freeland's like an honest sort of bad candidate. She's an honest, bad prime minister. Mark Carney is the Liberals trying to wash themselves of their record by bringing in a guy who can pretend he's an outsider. And so I think that Chrystia Freeland is the more honest take. That it's the deputy prime minister becoming prime minister, somebody everyone knows, everyone that most people understand is associated with the failures and is not just going to forgive easily. Mark Carney is trying to play a trick on Canadians who don't remember who he is and assumes, oh, he's the old Bank of Canada governor. Like, no, no, no. The man was the guy advising the Liberal government on financial policy at least for the last 4 years. Everything that went wrong in the last 4 years, that's a lot to do with Mark Carney and Justin Trudeau, and actually far less to do with Chrystia Freeland, but she gets the blame for being the front woman. Again, she's done a lot of terrible, nasty things. Same time, it was actually Mark Carney who was doing the bigger things in the background. Anyways, so I'm not sure if there's really even much else to say about this. The one thing I do want to highlight before anyone gets too, elevated about the Liberals kicking people out, remember the Conservative Party also kicks people out of their leadership races. They kick people out of nominations. And that's not because, well, the Conservatives are just as corrupt as the Liberals. Not far from it. It shows that the nomination system in Canada really needs to be cleaned up. And if you're going to have an internal party election, whether it's for a leader or it's for a nomination locally, you need to have some Elections Canada oversight so that if someone cheats, Elections Canada or the government doesn't put their hands in the air and say, technically, the party can do whatever it wants. We have to get away from that because insiders cannot just pick people's candidates for them. So few Canadians are involved in the nomination process. Rigging a nomination really doesn't have that big of an effect because people don't care. People weren't following it in the first place. They don't even know what that means, that someone was disqualified from a nomination. This one is particularly egregious just because the Liberal Party has no ideological diversity. Even within the Conservative Party, even when people are disqualified and whatnot, it's for petty backroom reasons that wasn't my ally and I want my ally to win. But there are social conservatives, there are fiscal conservatives, there are libertarians, there are progressives. There's a lot of people in that party. There are fiscal liberals in the Conservatives, tons and tons of perspectives on policy. The Liberals, if you leave a small bandwidth of views, you are considered persona non grata and kicked out. It's insane. Anyways, so that should be it for me today, guys. I have no doubt that this story is going to keep developing, and I hope Ruby Dhalla just keeps taking swings at Mark Carney. I think the main reason they actually probably want her out was the debate. They did not want her on stage saying, hey, Mark, weren't you advising the government for the past 4 years, and then you blame Chrystia Freeland for everything? Because having a moment like that is going to be endlessly replayed by the Conservatives. But yeah, so that's it, guys. See you later. I'm going to go hit some doors in Cambridge because, I try and actually do stuff in the real world. I don't like when people, like creators of content, just tell you that you should go volunteer for the party, but then they won't volunteer themselves. So I flew out from Calgary to Cambridge, and I'm, at least going to leaflet some doors for the New Blue Party, put up some signs, all that stuff. So see you guys later.